Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are diving into the Napoleonic Wars again, and this time specifically we're doing Dutch Belgian infantry. These guys are pretty unique in their uniforms, so I hope you enjoy. If you haven't already though, please do like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on any future releases. Also do go over and check us out on Facebook, that way you can upload your works in progress and get further involved with the community. So, Dutch Belgian troops. Quite unique in that some of their uniforms were still a bit of a leftovers from whilst they were serving with the French, but then they were also getting kitted out by the British, so there's some interesting uniforms there. First things we've got to do is get them prepped, so get your spray paints. I use a dark, in this case black spray paints. You get your paints, whether you're using oils or acrylics, some knives and some clippers, just to get your bases ready and good to go. So the first thing we're going to do is just paint all of the tunics in game colours night blue. So very simple, nice dark blue just to match that dark blue uniform that we see them in. Next up I use Army Painter Uniform Grey, and we're going to be using this to do all of their trousers, because in most of the artwork that we see and references they're wearing grey trousers. So just take time. I always find it's best if you're using acrylics just to water them down just a little bit, and then that way you get a nice smooth covering. And if you need to do two coats, do two. However, depending on your paints, you may be able to get away with one, and if you're using a wet palette, again you might be able to get away with one, but don't be afraid of using several coats just to get a good final finish. So yeah, just a little bit about the Dutch Belgian troops. So during the Napoleonic Wars, the Dutch Belgian troops played a significant, yet often underappreciated role in several key battles. After Napoleon's annexation of the Netherlands in 1810, Dutch soldiers were conscripted into the French army, and they served in various campaigns across Europe, including his disastrous invasion of Russia. So they did sort of get all over. So next up we're going to do the cross belts, and we're going to be using game colours Dead White. This does look nice, it contrasts very nicely to that dark blue, so it does end up giving you a good effect on the troops. Although there's a lot of straps and belts, there's good detail on these figures. I find just do the X and you end up getting the effect that you want from a distance without having to be too labour intensive on the miniatures themselves. It should be noted, at this stage, I should have said it at the start I guess, but the miniatures that we're actually using are the Warlord Games British infantry sprues. They don't do any specifically for the Dutch, Belgians, Nassau, etc. So we are using the British sprue in this case. And they work pretty nicely because, as I mentioned earlier, we were supplying some of the uniform to them. So next up we're going to do the flesh. As a base colour we're using Bone White from Game Colour, and then later on we'll put a wash over the top just to warm it up and bring it to life, I guess is probably the best way of putting it. So going back to a bit of history, following Napoleon's defeat in 1814 and the subsequent creation of the United Kingdom of the Netherlands, Dutch and Belgian troops became part of the newly formed Allied forces. By 1815, these troops found themselves on the battlefield once again, but this time fighting against their former ruler at the Battle of Waterloo and Quatre Bras, where they were quite critical in bolstering Wellington's defensive line. Again, at the Battle of Waterloo, Dutch and Belgian forces under the command of the Prince of Orange did play quite a crucial role in holding the sort of centre-left of the Allied army. They are often criticised for their performance, claiming instances of retreat and disorder, but although that did happen, we've also got to remember that they were relatively inexperienced troops at that time, and what they did do was hold the line long enough for British, or in due course Prussian troops, to come up to be able to sort of win the battle. So they were very required, very necessary, and did their duty. So next up we're going to use Game Colours Leather Brown. I do like this colour, it's quite light, and once we put the wash on later it's really going to stand out nicely. But just take your time and do the muskets. Again, because I like to do speed painting, I tend to put, when I'm painting the front rank, I'll paint the front of the muskets completely, and when I'm doing the rear rank, I'll do the rear of it, and then for the two, sort of the back of the front and the front of the rear, I just do the tops of the muskets, just to speed the process. However, you can go into as much detail as you wish, or just copy my speed painting tips. So there were some challenges faced by the Dutch and Belgian soldiers. So during the Napoleonic Wars, these were quite unique challenges as well. So after decades of political instability, due to the fact that they were occupied and all sorts of things that were going on, they were now fighting under a newly unified kingdom of the Netherlands, meaning many of these troops had little battlefield experience, as I touched on earlier, and they were under their new command structure. And in addition, Dutch and Belgian soldiers had also been fighting for Napoleon's Grand Armée in the prior years, so there was a divided loyalty or a perceived lack of loyalty between different units and different personnel within the units. So there was that sort of friction, I guess is probably a good word for it. Their equipment and training often lagged behind that of the British or the Prussians, because they were kind of being supplied by whoever could supply them. But despite the obstacles, they did perform with resilience, especially at, say, like the Battle of Quatre Bras, where they did pretty well. So next up, we are going to paint the metalwork, so the bayonets, etc. And we're using silver from Game Colour. I've mentioned it in other videos, I do like this colour a lot. It flows very smoothly and gives you a good outcome. The legacy of Dutch and Belgian troops in the Napoleonic Wars is complex, often overshadowed by the larger powers involved in the conflict, such as Britain, France and Prussia. However, their involvement in battles like Waterloo marked a turning point in the military history of the Low Countries. After years of occupation and forced conscription into Napoleon's armies, the Dutch and Belgian soldiers were key to the Allied victory that ended the Napoleonic era. So now that we've finished with our base layers, it's time to apply a dark brown wash. Check out the channel and you'll find out how I make my own washes. But what this is going to do is kind of unite and dull down any of the darker colours with the lighter colours and just make the whole thing one, let's put it that way. Next up, we're going to highlight with the original colours and a few extras. So I've also used System 3 Crimson Red, Game Colour Ice Blue and Game Colour Bright Bronze. So just use the colours as you need to pick out shako plates, buckles, etc. The sashes on the officers. Just use whatever colours you think are suitable. Then we get to basing. So again, you've got multiple options. You could just paint the base green. You could paint it green, sand it, and then paint the sand green, kind of an old school style. Or you can go through using clump foliage and different flocks. You can really make them as amazing or as simple as you want. The bases are green straight out of the pack, so you could even just not do any flocking and just have them straight away up. There are people who have played with them in red and blue without painting their miniatures, period. So finally, the piece we've all been waiting for. What do they look like? If you haven't already, do please like and subscribe. But yeah, overall, I think these chaps have come out remarkably well. Considering they are the British troops just being painted up for Dutch Belgium, it shows the resilience of the miniature sculpts, and I think they work very, very nicely. Are they perfect? Not 100%, but once you paint them up, you can get them looking pretty gosh darn good, in my opinion. I hope you think so too, guys. I really do. So yeah, leave a comment down below as to what projects you're currently working on. Also, if you want me to do anything, these ones here were inspired by Luke. He asked if we could do some Dutch Belgians, so these ones are for Luke. So again, shout out, leave a comment down below, and I will get round to them. But once again, thanks for taking time to watch. Thanks for all your comments and your interaction. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.